So, good day everyone. I'm Ramin Bukoy from BS at English Swahili. And for today's video, I'll be discussing to you the different linguists and their contributions to the linguistic. So, to start with, Aristotle. So, in his theory, the context of his theory of truth as correspondence, he also provided different semantic analysis of prepositions in that he distinguished two main constituents, the predicate which expresses a property and the remainder of the preposition referring to a substance to which the property is assigned. That assignment is either true or false, but later on the remainder was called subject term, and the Aristotelian predicate was identified with the verb in that sentence. The Aristotelian predicate, however, is more like what is now called the comment, whereas his remainder corresponds to the topic. Aristotle furthermore defined nouns and verbs as word classes. In addition, he introduced the term case for paradigmatic morphological variation. So next is the Robert Loth. He advised against ending sentences with prepositions. He acknowledged the construction as an idiom which our language is strongly inclined to. Loth also distinguished between shall and will as the future auxiliary, yet he noted that the pattern is a new one that took hold in the language after the vulgar translation of the Bible. Loth was convinced that English is rule-governed, and he defended the regularity and simplicity of the language against a tradition which viewed it as too primitive to possess any grammar at all. His model was Latin grammar, but he readily modified this to accommodate the idiosyncrasies of English. He also championed English language study in school, arguing that it is facilitated the acquisition of the classics as well as the concept of universal grammar. So the first is that Jones was not the first to recognize the relationship of some of the languages that comprise the Indo-European language family. Hypotheses very much like Jones go back to the Scythian hypothesis. Even Sanskrit was brought into the picture as early as 1643 by Claudius Salmasius. The second and more important point here is that Jones cannot be considered the founder of modern historical linguistics because he did not use the comparative method, the crucial innovation that distinguishes modern historical linguistics from its predecessors. So lastly, Ferdinand de Saussure, the founding figure of modern linguistics, made his mark on the field with a book he published a month after his 21st birthday, in which he proposed a radical rethinking of the original system of vowels in Proto-Indo-European. Saussure defines linguistics as the study of language and as the study of the manifestations of human speech. He says that linguistics is also concerned with the history of languages and with the social or cultural influences that shape the development of language. This Saussure is regarded by many as the creator of the modern theory of structuralism, to which his langue and parole are integral. He believed that a word's meaning is based less on the object it refers to and more in its structure. So next, let's explain the historical development of a language by Darwin or Charles Darwin. Darwin believed that language was a half art, half instinct, and he made the case that using sound to express thoughts and be understood by others was not an activity unique to humans. Darwin described how language might have evolved through natural and sexual selection. He compared birds learning to sing to infants babbling. An early progenitor of man, he wrote, probably used his voice as did the male gibbon to produce musical cadences for courtship and to compete with other males. So let's define the Romance languages. It's a group or a group of related languages, all derived from Vulgar Latin within historical times and forming a subgroup of the Italic branch of the Indo-European language family. The major languages of the family, these include the French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Spanish is the most spoken of the Romance languages, with around 75% of today's Spanish vocabulary coming from Latin. After Mandarin Chinese, Spanish is the second most spoken native language worldwide. Contrary to a popular belief that the Romance languages are so named because they are the languages of love, the word Romance indicates the connection of these languages with Rome. The English word comes from an Old French form of Latin Romanicus used to designate a vernacular type of Latin speech and literature. So, Proto-Germanic is the source of the modern languages, was spoken by a small population of Iron Age agriculturalists in southern Scandinavia and the adjacent Baltic and North Sea coasts. In the centuries that followed, Germanic tribes slowly spread to the south and southeast, largely displacing or absorbing the continental Celts, who had occupied much of Central and Eastern Europe a half-millennium earlier. Moreover, Proto-Germanic or Germanic languages, there are three groups. Scholars often divide the Germanic languages into three groups. This includes the West Germanic, including English, German, and Nederlandic, or the Dutch. North Germanic, including Danish, Swedish, Icelandic, Norwegian, and Faroese. And East Germanic, now extinct, comprising only Gothic and the languages of the Vandals, Burgundians, and a few other tribes. Indo-European languages are a language family native to the overwhelming majority of Europe, the Iranian plateau, and the northern Indian subcontinent. Sino-Tibetan languages are a group of languages that includes both the Chinese and the Tibeto-Burman languages. In terms of numbers of speakers, they constitute the world's second largest language family after the Indo-European, including more than 300 languages and major dialects. So here we go, let's explain the following terms. Firstly is the Grimm's Law. It defines the relationship between certain stop consonants and Germanic languages and their originals in Indo-European. These consonants underwent shifts that changed the way they are pronounced. Next is the Great Vowel Shift was a series of changes in the pronunciation of the English language that took place primarily between 1-4 and 1-7, beginning in southern England and today having influenced effectively all dialects of English. So let's discuss the history of a English language. So Old Language or Old English is a West Germanic language and developed out of Ingvagionic, or known as the North Sea Germanic dialects from the 5th century. It came to be spoken over most of the territory of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, which became the Kingdom of England. So, Middle English, a period of roughly 300 years from around 1150 CE to around 1450, is difficult to identify because it is a time of transition between two eras that each have stronger definition, or the Old English and Modern English. So next is modern English, is conventionally defined as the English language since about 1450 or 1500. Distinctions are commonly drawn between the early modern period, roughly around 4050 and 18, and late modern English, early 1800 and the present. Next is the early modern English or early new English. As the stage of the English language from the beginning of the Tudor period to the English Interregnum and Restoration, or from the transition from Middle English in the late 15th century to the transition to modern English in the mid to late 17th century. The late modern English period provides an essential link between the syntactic innovations of early modern English and established system of present-day English.